right. I think this is us. I think this is happening. All right. Now the question is, are I know, but it looks like your audio isn't coming through. So let me see if I can correct that. It is astonishing that it's literally I nothing. No part of this is working properly. Well, we'll be right back, folks.
We're back.
We're
Uh,
on the internet again, and this time, hopefully, you can hear everybody.
for the record, Troy, if it's working, your suggestion of turning it off and back on again worked.
That is actually true. That is actually
Yay,
true.
technology.
Although, funnily enough, I realized that we can't see John's name behind his thing. So I'm going to
Y-
fix that.
Yeah,
Spencer, you do some talking now that people can hear you.
yeah, that's fantastic. Hopefully, everyone can hear me. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone, and thank you for bearing with us during some technical difficulties.
Yes.
Sometimes technology doesn't work the way you want it to, even when you really, really, really want it to. Thank you for the subs, everyone. We appreciate that. Just so everyone knows, when you help fund this channel with your subscriptions, even if it's your free Prime subscription, that money goes directly back into the funding pot for more streams. Uh, just as a little side thing before we get dive into things, we spent all weekend recording our first actual play game stream series campaign. That's the word I'm looking for. Which will be starting to air on November 22nd right here on Twitch. And in part, it was funded by your guys' subs. So we appreciate that. But that aside, welcome. My name is Spencer Navarchu. I am one of the online event coordinators here at Baldman Games. I help organize the games and the streams and things like that. With me, below me, you will see my work partner, Ted, the online event manager for Baldman Games. Over to my, I guess that's my left on the screen there. You will see John Christian, DM extraordinaire, the Dwarven DM, also, well-known Dragonlance fan.
That's foaming at the mouth Dragonlance nerd, sir.
Oh, I apologize. And of course, I'm pretty sure everyone here knows who Alan Patrick is. Also Dragonlance fan, also author of many great things. Also DM extraordinaire, currently at large. So welcome and thank you for joining us here at Baldman Games Meet and Greet. We are very glad to have you here. I'm sure our audience is, because we have had a lot of questions from various people informally about this new storyline.
Yes. The answers are D, fish, and next week, Thursday.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, that's it. We're done, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
It's really simple.
All right. So let's get rid of things. We're a little behind schedule by like a lot. So we'll just get right into things. Let's go with John. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you started into D&D? How long you've been doing it? What got you into it? How long you've been DMing, that sort of thing.
Yep, for about 30 years now, I've been playing D&D. Played it really early whenever I was a kid. Had no idea what I was doing. A friend of mine went over to his house. He had a chest of treasure. The treasure was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, Player's Handbook, DM's Guide, Monster Manual, bunch of dice, miniatures. All of them were from his brother, who had gone to college and had passed it on to him. And so we played between the two of us. He was the DM, and it was just a solo adventure. And I had like 3 or 4 different characters that I would play as, and he had no idea what he was doing, other than he had his brother's module that had been written by hand on grid paper and folded and stapled, and oh my god, it was amazing. And of course, it had like the typical heavy metal S was on the back of it or something like that. But it was so I played since then. I kind of had a hiatus during second edition and only came into like the back end of it. Because D&D was the devil in my house and in many houses. And then I got in the military, went to the military, played D&D a bit there. And then whenever I got out of the military and I was in college, I played the crap out of D&D with my friends during third edition. And so I've just been in it ever since then. I've played fourth and then just played the crap out of fifth. But I'm the forever DM in my group, for sure. Like, I can't remember the last time anyone else has ever run a game among my friends.
It's a thing I'm sure a lot of people watching can empathize with. I think a lot of us are forever DMs.
You know what, though? I've said it before. I don't know what to do with myself when I'm a player anymore. It's really awkward. I'm so used to managing so many things and having this constant stream or constant interaction with something whenever I'm kind of like just sitting there and chilling, I'm like, I don't really know what else to do with myself.
I played it at Amy's Save Against Fear online a few weeks ago, and it was the first time I had played a game, not run a game, in I don't even know how long.
Mm-hmm.
It was. I definitely feel that. So that's fantastic. Sounds like you like a real like you had that classic D&D first experience, which is really I love hearing about this.
Oh yeah.
Alan, how about you? Same sort of thing. Like, how long you been doing this? What got you into it?
So my role playing game experience started with the Lone Wolf books way back when. Uh, from there, it grew. I got exposed to D&D through some friends at school, and then was immediately exposed to some viewpoints amongst my family that made it so that stuff was not welcome at home. But being the person I am, I still acquired the books and watched in sadness as they were taken out in the driveway and burned a couple of times and then replaced. And yeah, it was childhood was lovely. it was a dramatically different time, and 89 to 92.
Oh man, yeah.
But yeah, second edition revised, like that's really where I came into it and really started playing. Started DMing in, I don't know, 98 maybe, somewhere around there. And it's just kind of gone from there. I didn't really get involved in organized play until about 2008 with Living Forgotten Realms and that launch. I did some stuff through stores locally for Zendrick Expeditions. But other than that, just very casual, and I say casual, and people who know how much I DM might rail against that comment, but I don't really take it too seriously, and things have developed. I did Living Forgotten Realms. I did the 5th edition Adventurers League launch and was on that team until last summer, and have retired out of there and took some time off, and now here I am.
Well, if you don't mind my asking, how did you guys get connected up with Baldman Games and doing some of the shows? Obviously, you've both now written as well adventures before this, but what got you started?
Well, I can honestly say it's Ted's fault. It literally is Ted's fault. Ted and I played at 2018 Gen Con. I went with some of my friends. But it was just like I didn't have very many people with me there, and he ran a game, and then talked to Ted after. Like, this is really cool. Like I'd done organized play too, but I did like D&D encounters in 4th edition. That was pretty much it. RPGA before that, hadn't been involved. All of my experience in D&D had been home games and not public play events or organized play at all. So coming into it through the convention circuit, playing with Ted and some of the really great DMs with Baldman Games, just asking a lot of questions and being like, I think I might be able to do this and just not embarrass myself. But we'll see. I've since then found out that I do embarrass myself quite often, but they haven't kicked me out yet, so I'm pretty happy with it. I started running games at Winter Fantasy 2019, and wow, like I'd been to other conventions before that, but Winter Fantasy is just like, it blew my mind because it was very familial, small, not overwhelming. If you want to play D&D, you're going to play a crap load of D&D with really great DMs, really great content. And I was like, that was whenever I catapulted from there, and then came back for 2020 Winter Fantasy, played through the pandemic, played through VDDW, and so I've just been in Baldman Games ever since, helping out with on the committees and helping out with the mentoring committee in particular, helping out new DMs and things like that. It's been great.
If you really want to know, we haven't kicked you out because you made those awesome name tags. So
I still like those name tags. People still talk about. It's not just you. Like I get that. Like every once in a while, people are like, oh my god, I remember that one time when you did it 2020. In 2020, you did all the name tags. I'm like, it wasn't a big deal for me because once I'd done them, it was just a matter of like swapping people's names out and then printing and cutting. So, but like, I'm really glad that people love them so much.
Don't sell yourself short. Those were some DM of the Year award-winning name tags.
Well, it was just I was just forecasting the future, I suppose.
And what about you, Alan?
My involvement with Baldman, it's very similar, right? Like I volunteered for Winter Fantasy in a year that was not in the last decade. It was a while ago. It was in cold, blustery Fort Wayne. That was my first official involvement. I think it was either the first Winter Fantasy for fourth, or it might have been the tail end of third. I don't really remember. It's a long time ago. But my first informal exposure to Baldman was as a player at Gen Con in like probably 2003, I think, before like Baldman was what it is today. It was still a big experience. And the end of my, I think, second Gen Con, I had made friends with some of the DMs that were there, and they roped me into running an informal table by saying, "Hey, we're exhausted from running a bunch of stuff. Take some of our free stuff and run a game for these guys, will you?" And it wasn't like at the Baldman group, right? We were back in the hotel at this point, but that's what got me involved in it, because the sweet siren call of free stuff really caught me. And my shelves prospered while my paycheck did not for a long time. And things have advanced, and here we are.
Yeah, I'm looking behind both of you, and it feels like you sort of have a brand that you might be establishing here.
I have run out of walls to build bookshelves up here in my office. I built custom bookshelves because the Beetle and Grimm boxes don't fit on normal mortal bookshelves.
Mortal bookshelves. I like that.
Well, they're huge. They're massive and they're heavy. But I am out of walls. Like the only upgrade that my partner and I have really realistically talked about at this point is, if we continue to acquire books, we have to acquire a second house.
Jeannie says you owe her bookshelves.
Let me tell you something. I've seen Alan's bookshelves. He sent me some. He had to flex on me, of course. show me his collection in shelf form. And let me tell you something. Like, it's like a library. It's crazy.
we call it Candlekeep. It's like I think it's like 94% of everything published by TSR and Wizards.
He even has, for like we're talking about Dragonlance, but like he even has the legend, like the Legends book from third edition. It's like it's so hard to get a hold. I've been looking for it for years, trying to get it for a reasonable. But here he goes. Yeah, rub it in my face, why don't you?
Give me just a second here.
Yeah, there's a book. It's essentially like a like what if style book for third edition. There you go. Legends of the
Legends.
Twins. Oh man, yeah. Yeah, Towers of High Sorcery. That's another really tough one to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I we'll talk about it here in a little bit. When it comes to like referencing things, I had to dig deep into my own personal collection. I borrowed other people's collections. They're still on loan under threat of death if I were to lose or damage any of them, though.
The only game material I'm missing from all of the Dragonlance stuff at this point is the Tasselhoff map pouch, Age of Mortals, I think.
I might be able to hook you up.
I think I'll have to consult the spreadsheet.
I think I actually have an extra copy of one, either that or
it's
I have
one of those
Legends.
map pouches.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about it later.
Yeah. See, already started.
But yeah, it's a reference library. Like, unlike people like Alex Kammer, who have shrink wrap copies of everything, and that's awesome. My stuff it's in pretty good shape, right? But it's intended to be used. I want people that come here to game, or whoever I pass it down to eventually, to be able to like crack them open and learn and explore with them, just like I have over the years.
Awesome.
Amen to that.
Awesome.
That's incredible. So this next one, I'm gonna skip you for a second, John, and come back to you. Alan, what are your favorite settings across any edition of D&D? What really gets you fired up?
So if we're talking about strictly Dungeons and Dragons settings, Dragonlance is number one, always has been. Weiss and Hickman made some very strong narrative decisions early on that, even as they matured as authors, we're able to identify very easily in the Chronicles trilogy and, into their later writings. After that, Dark Sun, for a lot of reasons. There were things that I didn't really agree with, but it told a good limited resources story. And that makes a more compelling thing than just filling narrative with magic and because a wizard did it. Like, but why did the wizard do it? And Dark Sun explores that very effectively. And in a similar vein, Ravenloft. Ravenloft is all about how humans are the worst possible monsters, and they become the monster that they embody, right? They become the monster they envision, rather, or that people envision them to be, is the
Right.
case may be for some of them. And really, the narrative drives all of those. At the heart, the best stories for those three settings don't have much magic. They don't have a whole lot of like high and mighty ye and thee and thou style adventures, but they're all very personal, and they're very zoomed in on a person or a small group of people, and I really dig that.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that really comes through in the things of yours I've played and read. That makes a lot of sense hearing that.
It's decisions like, oh well, if it isn't the consequences of my own decisions. Oh, look at that.
All right, so John, I'm not even going to ask for your first favorite. Everyone knows what that
It's
one
Red
is.
Steel, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So what besides Dragonlance? What are your favorites?
Besides Dragonlance, I'm gonna, not to copy, but I'd like, man, Dark Sun is fantastic. I love Dark Sun. I enjoyed Spelljammer back in the day a bit, but it was kind of like they were sojourns that I would end up taking. They were these to get my players from one setting that they were comfortable with, or kind of like the home setting, and doing an excursion out to another setting to just mix things up, add a little bit of additional flavor, and then come back. Right. The idea of like interconnected worlds and universes is not something that is solely the purview of the MCU. The multiverse, that we had the multiverse. Like, granted, the multiverse is it's kind of like this shared mythological device that's used quite a bit in sci-fi and fantasy, and so it's really cool. I always loved that about Spelljammer in particular. But Dark Sun was one of those where the struggle was incredibly real, and that there was a lot of the moral gray was one of the things that I would dabble with, but I never really gravitated towards the moral gray, like having to make really tough decisions, especially whenever I was younger. In particular, I didn't want to have to worry about it being the goblin's birthday that I just killed. And like he had like his little birthday cake with one candle on it hidden underneath his bed, and I find that I'm like, oh my god, I'm a monster.
You've been reading my story notes, I see. I got you.
See, I didn't want that. So like, when for me, I still do. I still have like a deep abiding love for tales of heroism, valor, glory, or not even necessarily glory, because to me glory can be vainglorious, right? But for me, it's about like doing a good, self-sacrifice, love, like love in action kind of thing, like not a romantic love, but like loving other people, like where those things are always gravitated towards. But then I would dip my toe into the darkness that was Ravenloft, and really was Dark Sun. It was just, it felt a lot like God, what was it? Like Thundar the Barbarian, like post-apocalyptic, made you feel weird in the pit of your stomach when you're a kid. It's like, what if this happened? Kind of questions the independent, these existential questions you ask yourself. And it kind of like veered me. That's D&D, veered me towards other settings outside of D&D with other systems as a result of that too.
One of the first big things that I was asked to do when I joined into organized play and started writing was it was actually a Dark Sun thing, and they approached me after playing through some of my LFR stuff. They're like, hey, we have this cool Dark Sun adventure seed. We want you to develop it. I'm like, why me? They're like, well, we want you to like end the world because we don't know if we're getting renewed, but like leave a little glimmer of hope. So I'm like, how do I end Dark Sun?
Yeah.
And it's all gone from there. So yeah.
All right. So John, we sort of skipped over the Dragonlance initially there, but so we all know you love Dragonlance. What is it about Dragonlance that you love so much? Like, what is it that brings you to Dragonlance?
This is my favorite question for people to ask, because it has nothing like, there's so much in it that is actually unique and different, and yet so incredibly familiar. If you come into Dragonlance and you're a Tolkien fan, there's a lot that's in there that you're going to be really familiar with.
Absolutely,
it's feel like it's like a homecoming. You haven't played any other D&D material, campaign settings, or anything like that. You're still going to feel like you know some of this stuff, right? And I think that's one of the things that made it so compelling and popular during the day. Everybody knows what a dragon is. It's in the public consciousness. Tolkien's writings had been around long enough and had become popularized enough to where elves and dwarves were a normal thing that kids would have heard about. But really, the thing that I fell in love with as I read these books didn't have anything to do with any of the fantastic that was in it. Again, like it was about. I think the best way that I know how to explain is it's about a bunch of weirdos that should not like each other, should hate each other, certainly shouldn't love one another, that come together, and in spite of a world that shuns them, hates them, ostracizes them, looks at them suspiciously, side of their eye, in spite of all those things, no one will listen to them, no one will believe them. They don't just they save the world through the things that they unite over. And so those narratives were incredibly compelling to me as a kid. That I think all of us, like in whatever walk of life that you're in, there's like middle school is incredibly awkward. You feel gangly, or you feel just like you feel weird in your own skin. And so for me, being around the other quote unquote weirdos, the nerds and geeks and things like that, and loving geek culture and nerd culture, I gravitated toward it quite a bit. Aside from that, like, so the concept of like all of our differences being a good thing, and that being unique in those differences, and then finding a way to, like Voltron, combine our powers to make this really awesome, to do this awesome thing. There was that, but then there was also something about none of the other stuff that I'd read since even Dragonlance, like, did focus so much on like a knighthood, code of honor, chivalric behavior, like forms of etiquette, and like really, honestly, like a lot of people crap on Sturm, but like Sturm is one of the reasons why I loved Dragonlance so much. Sturm is beautiful. He's an idiot. Like, I'm not saying that he's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but like that again, that heroism, that thing that really just pulls me towards something of like self-sacrifice, humility, humble, and the willing to do anything that it takes without sacrificing the well-being of others for the greater good. Man, like that, like fireballs and Kinder and all that good stuff. That's all just like set dressing for me. The thing that really drove me towards it are those elements, though.
So it's kind of funny to me because the things you sort of mentioned there was if you came off Tolkien and that chivalric sort of attitude. And when I read those initial Dragonlance novels, which were the first D&D thing I was exposed to other than the cartoon show, I had just started reading Lord of the Rings, and I had also recently read the Arthurian tales. That was sort of where I was at. So yeah, I think that was exactly what drew me into it as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's funny you sort of peg the same sort of things.
Yeah, the Arthurian element of it, right? Like that's one of those things where, even as a kid, it wasn't the devil to hear about the Sword and the Stone, Arthur and Merlin and things like that. So it was an easy coupling. I already loved knights, and I already loved like armor, swords, shields, charging out into battle, fighting bad guys. Oh baby, sign me up, and sign up anybody else out there that wanted it. I loved it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so sort of gotten a bit of a feel for both of you where you came from, and I think Ted's got the next bit here about where the things I think everyone really wants to know right now.
Yeah. Time to dive into the meat of it here, right? So obviously, knowing that the book is not yet out, the hardcover Shadow of the Dragon Queen, right? What can you tell us about how what you guys are putting together ties into the book in terms of how intermeshed the stories are, or is this something that comes before, after, really totally separate?
Timeline wise, go ahead, Alan. If you want to, you've seen the storylines. So, I mean, you want to?
Yeah. So we wanted people to have a chance to explore like the events, the stuff that's going on, but still have all of the flexibility and ultimately the responsibility to have their own story. So it's sort of in parallel to the events that are ongoing. It doesn't really weave in and out of the hardcover per se. I mean, if you play the hardcover and this storyline, you'll have a very rich experience. But they are two contained stories on their own. Don't want to delve too much in and give too much away because the book's not out and the digital release got bumped back, so people haven't had a chance to put their eyeballs on it yet.
Yeah, I think I'll add on that too. It is. I think that everybody already knows that it's during the War of the Lance. We won't go into any detail about exactly when during the War of the Lance, beginning, middle, end, or anything like that at all. But yeah, the decision was made. Like when it comes to like how we want to roll this out, I've talked extensively to Alan about this philosophy on it that I've tried to put into it when I'm putting the story together, and that is you have 3 tiers of fan when it comes to stuff like this. A lot of time you have the what the hell's a Dragonlance, right? That's one. That's the fan that could be, right?
Stick that looks like a dragon.
Right, exactly. And then that sounds like a gnomish invention to me. I think I like it. Put a pin in that, please.
Making notes.
Yep. There's the fan that could be. The tier 2 is the fan that may be coming back into it, and then the fan that never let go. The fan that is like the forever fan. Again, foaming at the mouth, Dragonlance nerd, self-avowed, right? Whenever I put together the original story, this is like I being myself, it would be really easy for me to try to serve my own interest and like making it deep Dragonlance lore, but it's not going to be accessible if I go too far in that direction. So when it comes to like timeline, Dragonlance, the War of the Lance is perfect because really, I think Joe Manganiello says it best. Dragonlance is the Star Wars of D&D, right? It is a saga. It is a beginning, middle, end, boom. And then after that, it's still Dragonlance, but it's kind of like, it's really, really open-ended what you do with it. After like the Chronicles trilogy and after the Twins trilogy in particular, kind of like it opens up, better or worse, right? And so the idea here is to show a lot of love to the people that have carried the torch for the last 20 years where we've had zero love, or actually 20, we have like 15 to 17 years, I think was the last source book that was printed by for third edition. It's been a while, right? So I want them to have these Easter eggs, and I want these like nods, homages, and things like that to serve that. But really and truly, this is for the ones and the twos. My deep desire is I want people to know why I love this, and I want not necessarily play the greatest hits, but I want them to see the things that are so great about it. So they're like, holy crap, this is great. I want to go buy the books, read the books, and then I want to understand better what's going on in the periphery of all these other adventures, so that they'll want to carry it forward themselves. I want another generation. Otherwise, the setting dies. If you only cater to the people that have held on to it for so long.
Yeah, the War of the Lance is kind of the story that everyone knows already. So having this hardcover come out and be not a way of saying like, well, this is the story you thought you knew. It's just telling another side of that story, which Dragonlance has always excelled at, like revealing that relationships and antagonists even they're not two-dimensional. There's always a third point of view to consider. That's something that John and I have been bearing in mind as we've been talking about our design philosophy and our design process, is we want people to explore this story and get a little added reward if they already know the whole story, but still be fully approachable if they're brand new to the table, because we have so many new players coming in to join us. We all want them to be excited. We want them to pick up and start running games. So we can maybe retire one day.
I have to confess.
I'm happy to hand it off. Happy.
I have to confess that I am somebody who has, as much as I love D&D, only read one Dragonlance book, and it was not one of the early books in the series.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, which one was it?
Okay, so now I know who that.
I'll have to go and find it, but I am definitely in the category of people who see your enthusiasm for it, and I'm like, I want to know what it is that makes you so passionate for it. So I'm eager to see how this plays out in what you put into the adventures, in what the authors put into the adventures, so that we can, so that I can feel like I'm drawn into something where I really need to know more of that backstory.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Believe me.
So what we're gonna do here, because we're running a little short in time, we're gonna go lightning round to the next few questions. I'll do one, then Ted will do one.
You want to hit the most important one? Spencer.
Yeah, I'll start with the first one in a second, and then after we get to those, we'll go to any questions people in the chat have right now. We've got a couple already queued up, and we'll grab anyone else comes through. So, lightning round. Question 1. Everyone needs to know, what level does the storyline start at? And
Patrick?
then I'll get to the second half of that, two-parter.
Yeah, we are. It's actually a two-part answer. I know you said lightning round, but the intro stuff is approachable. You will be low level. There are some things going on at PAX U. If anyone here is watching, listening, whatever, I will strongly recommend go to PAX U for the launch event. There are special bells and whistles and fireworks and bald men that will be there, and bald people and people that are part of the Baldman crew. Not necessarily bald. I do have to throw that out there. But the core of the story, the meat of the story, will be tier 2 to allow for maximum versatility and to make everyone feel like they are impactful in these events.
Gotcha.
I think is the only way I'm going to say it.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean. All right, second half of this, I'll throw at you, John. This is the most important question that everyone's here for. What's it going to be called, this new storyline of yours?
He's getting all the secrets on mute.
Like
all the secrets on mute.
Oh my god!
You giant
Sorry,
troll.
I just totally did the Ryan Johnson or the Ryan and Hugh Jackman moment there, where it's like, let me tell you all about this Wolverine Deadpool combo. No, the real question. Yeah. So what is it called? It is called Dragonlance: Vault of the Undying.
There you go, everyone. Vault of the Undying.
So if you were looking at that PAX schedule, now you know why it says that.
Yeah. All right, Ted, you got the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, you guys are huge fans, right? You have shown off your credentials here. Who else have you worked with in putting this together? Who have you used as references or to throw ideas off of or ask questions of about what you want to see and what you think will really make this show well?
I've got. I don't think Alan probably has a similar finger on the pulse of like the typical Dragonlance fan spaces, right? I know Shivam Bhatt is somebody that I've reached out to before. That he had worked with Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman on the new books, the new trilogy of books that they're writing. Reached out to the folks over at Dragonlance Nexus and asked them some questions too. Internally with the people that I know, I've worked with World of Game Design quite a bit. Some of our Baldman Games alumni like Troy Sandlin and Zach Owens, Janine Hempy.
Sorry, I have to stop you. That's Princess Troy Sandlin.
Princess, yes, thank you. All hail Princess Troy Sandlin. Yes. I've reached out to them quite a bit, but a lot of it too has been, aside from like throwing ideas against the wall and seeing what sticks, aside from those few spaces, like virtual spaces that I have where other Dragonlance nerds congregate. So shockingly enough, like Troy's a pretty good Dragonlance fan, but he's kind of like in that tier 2, 3 era where he likes it quite a bit, but he's just not as into it and not as deep a lore nerd about it, right? So what I've really had to do, and Alan, I'll let you kind of jump into this too, is just go back to the books. I read through the original trilogy again. I read through the Legends trilogy again, and there's like scads of information in the 3rd edition stuff that came out, the Dragonlance campaign setting, War of the Lance. I delved deep when Dragonlance Adventures from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Read through the Dragonlance Atlas, is like one of the greatest products in the world. And then let's see what else. The Dragonlance Player's Guide. I even went into I dug deep and went like into the Leaves from the End of the Last Home. And then if I need some inspiration, they're great. They're really good. And then of course, for those at home, you got to go, if you need some inspiration, you just go into the Dragonlance art. Man, holy crap! Like from start to finish, all of Elmore and Keith Parkins and there's just so much, Jeff Easley, so much great art that's in here that's really inspirational. So that's essentially where I kind of derive a lot of my inspiration from, and where I've gone for referencing really trying not to step too much on the toes of canon if I can, but God help me, there's so many hands that have been in it, and there's so much out there. Somebody's going to call me out on something. It's just going to happen. I've just resolved myself to being like, I did what I could.
But that's a good thing to point out too. Like, we don't want to be. I'm going to say something that may ruffle some feathers here. We don't want to be beholden to too much of the canon that has come before, and by that, I mean, so let me clarify. Like, we want to respect the things that have come before, but at the same time, we don't want people to feel like they have to have a history degree to really appreciate what's going on. We want there to be small nods, nice little, wise, callbacks and references here and there, but not required for the enjoyment of the actual experience. There are so many different voices that have contributed to the development of Krynn, the world of Dragonlance, over the years. It would be a Herculean task for us to really try and incorporate all of that. And I mean, if I had 48 hours in a day and no full-time job, I could probably do something like that. But I got bills to pay, man.
Yeah, good luck doing it. That's the thing.
Yeah. And there's so much to unweave and unravel to make sure that we're getting the right point of view, right?
Yeah. Like, the spell is really important. I mean, it's not just you guys, right? That's a thing that the Watch team has talked about doing with 5th edition is like, we're not throwing out the old canon, but sometimes we're going to adjust it to make it a little easier for everyone.
A little bit. We're not here to swing a hammer at canon. Like, people like what they like. We want to give people an opportunity to create their own going forward. Right. Really, like, so many of the novels, and there were so many Dragonlance novels, so many of those novels you just can't find anymore. They just don't exist anymore. It would be unreasonable to expect people to have the same love of some of those trilogies that I might have, even though I remember some of those events. Like, if the book doesn't exist for the fan base anymore, it doesn't do us any good to reference those things and have them be critically impactful.
Right. Well, and it's not even necessarily that I want to change anything. Right. I want to make sure that that's the message that I punctuate is, I'm not looking to make Sturm a villain. I'm not looking to make sure that certain characters that died stay alive, or trying to fundamentally change anything, or even in minor. I think what I make sure that I'm trying to get across is that, look, I'm going to do the best that I can to make this as close as I can, but you can only go so far before, again, there's so many disparate sources for the material.
Yeah.
If I tell a story that's in the same area at the same time, and somebody says, well, in this book, so-and-so was there and was doing the thing there, I'm like, look, I didn't do that on purpose. That's a book that I hadn't read. Literally, there are 167 novels. To give you some context here, there are 167 novels. There are dozens of source books, dozens of adventures, and it just goes, the list goes on. And you can't keep up with all of that. I wouldn't expect anybody to do that.
We're not going to be redefining Kitiara's status or her relationship with Tanis. But we may be adjusting some understanding of some things around this forest or this settlement, or maybe this practice surrounding one of the gods. Small things that are ultimately not super critical to the overall flow of the campaign world, but they become critical to the ongoing and engaging development of your story within that world.
Right.
Oh yeah, and another thing to consider about it too is that there's such a thing in Dragonlance speak as a kinder tale. So who's to say what is true and what is not, whenever kinder are the ones that are telling the stories of the world?
Everybody got an Uncle Trap Springer.
That's right. Everybody.
I'm gonna bring us back here real quickly to ask you, with all of this amazing volume of ideas and inspirations that you have, are you still looking for more people to do any work in this space or get involved?
Yeah,
and if
definitely.
So, how should those people reach you?
That's a good question. So, that's a loaded question, is what that
really is.
Part of this too is that there are a lot of different voices out there that love this setting, and I want to make sure that I try to be as considerate as I can about the different voices, and not just like the echo chamber that I create around myself with the people that I know and I'm familiar with and things like that. So really, this first bit, selecting a lot of the authors, because we're under pretty tight timelines, it's like selecting authors that are they're gonna grab it by the horns and they're gonna rock and roll. But when we're talking about the long game of authorship and writing, we're still soliciting. We're not soliciting this. We're reaching out. I'm really doing a lot of outreach, and I know that Alan's got a lot of resources that he can reach out to. We kind of have like a Rolodex that we can call upon. But I know that there are plans, if not already launched, there are plans that have been brewing for all of the different teams to do some solicitations.
That page, if you talk about the webpage, the webpage form, that's live right now. Actually,
I didn't even realize it was live.
it's live. It's been live for since mid last week. I think I got it up. If you go to the Baldman Games website, baldmangames.com, under the DM and Author Hub, you will see there is an open call form for anyone who is interested in writing for various storylines. No guarantee that you're going to get chosen, but if you'd like to submit a form, it's there. All the information is right there on the page.
I'll be honest, I forgot that was live.
Some things that I will throw out for prospective authors. One, like once you turn over your words, that it's like sending your baby off to school, right? Like your words are gonna learn some things, and when they come back, they may be a little different than when they left home, right? Please be able to process feedback. Also, Microsoft Word is a hard requirement.
I believe the document actually mentions that.
If you do not have Word and you don't want to use Word, then this is probably not the task for you.
Yep.
I believe that's actually right in the document that it mentions Word as a requirement.
Thank you, Jenny, for dropping.
I've only gone through a few thousand previous submissions.
I was working on it.
That we had that out there, and it didn't really get paid attention to.
All right. So with everything you sort of talked about, you've talked about your love of the setting and the sort of the influence it's had on you and things you've drawn on. Do you have like a single character or location that is your favorite that will appear in the storyline?
Oh man, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous question to ask a person.
You can not answer, but
I can tell you who my favorite character is.
Okay.
I don't know that I can tell you whether or not they're going to end up in the storyline.
Totally fair. They may or may not. Sure.
Oh man, I love Sturm. Like I like signing off for Sturm, man. I like his. I love it, man. He's noble, heroic fool that he is. Tragic. Yeah, man, I love Sturm. What about you, Alan?
So for me, I think my favorite character from all of those original books, and all of them meaning like the Chronicles, and there were some supplementary things. Barum Greengem.
Yeah, good call.
And he was ostensibly a minor character, ended up with a big green cursed gemstone jammed into his chest for various reasons. But much like the rest of Dragonlance, like the reason that happened is because of the relationship that he had and the decisions he made. I don't want to give away stuff that's coming up in the storyline, but those that know the story of Barum hopefully have the same character expectations that I do. I really want to see more instances like that in our storyline.
Agreed.
All right. So with that, I think we've come to the audience Q&A section of our evening. We'll get a few in before we have to go. I'll grab the first one here, and then Ted, you've got your adding some more there. All right. So Rob K on Discord says, "Hey John and Alan, Margaret Weiss recently posted that she wonders if the new WotC Dragonlance book will keep the original Dragonlance concepts of evil turns on itself, good redeems its own. Good and evil both exist to maintain the balance. Mortals are free to choose the paths they walk. Do these thematic elements inform your creation of new BMG Dragonlance storyline? Also, happy birthday, Alan."
Oh, thank you. The very first discussion John and I had about Dragonlance concepts was this topic. Some things that we wanted to make sure we paid full respect to and continue to push forward. Evil turns on itself, absolutely. Good redeems itself, absolutely. Everything is a triangle. Like these are all concepts that Weiss and Hickman worked very hard to introduce into those storylines that become the backbone of the Dragonlance narrative and what adheres us to this property over the years. And it's something that both, John, correct me if I'm speaking out of line here, but it's something that we're both very focused on maintaining.
Yes. Though there is in no other campaign setting that I'm aware of, do the gods meddle so much in the day-to-day activities and the events that go on in the world, and yet at the same time, part of the balance is really about, to me at least, maybe my interpretation, is about choice. The mortals still have a choice in which way the pendulum will swing, for better, for worse, or for harmony, right? And so, to me, in that same vein, yes, evil does turn on itself. It is a cannibalizing moral philosophy, whereas good is redemptive. It's about grace. It's about second chances. It's about rising up out of what you were to become something more, right? But then neutrality is really there because the spectrum of good and evil can go. We see it with the king priest of Istar, where it goes into paranoia, suspicion, xenophobia. It becomes a tyrannical. It can become tyrannical, and on either end of the spectrum, you're not good enough, you're too evil, et cetera, et cetera. So that balance is really about that. Because for the longest time, I had to I didn't understand. Wait a minute, there's such a thing as being too good. There's such a thing as being too evil.
Mm-hmm.
And so that concept was really tough, and I think that's one of the things that the questions that Dragonlance asks of the reader is what does it really mean for that balance to be there? And I believe that's one of those things, because on the spectrum you could teeter in one direction off the deep end in either one and kind of come back around.
Neutrality is always a very difficult thing to address. You know, the closest thing we've seen to a paragon of neutrality is Astinus of Palanthus.
Yes.
Right? And there were times even where the actions that Astinus undertook were questionable.
Yeah.
There is a question from Twitch. Dar Jr.
Yes.
Asks if there is going to be an announcement page or other information about chapters 1 and 2 coming up for PAX U. I don't know if you guys have any sense from conversations that might have happened with what we're doing for those chapters or not.
So we've been really focused on the development of the storyline and the coordination with authors and future bridge work. Really, I think Spencer, you might have some more insight on this.
I'll say we're going to have a landing page up for player information for PAX U.
Yes,
soon,
but that's I don't know that we have an answer for this one.
But I don't know
if you guys don't have any insights that we don't, we'll have to punt on that one for now.
That's outside of our wheelhouse.
Yeah,
soon
we do the content.
We will find out.
Sure.
The advertising is the group.
Fair enough.
Then continuing on, this is a question sort of about AL, but I'm going to turn it a little bit. C. McBriarty asked, how much are war mechanics used, if any? In AL in general, I mean, we're not doing things with like mass troop sort of stuff. Obviously, we're talking War of the Lance, and while the stories that we get are personal stories, group stories, that's sort of the heart of the D&D party experience. How much should we expect to see of the sense of the larger wartime experience?
Well, in this case, the shadow of war is ever present. It is something that is already going. It is something that looms everywhere. It influences the decisions that the characters, the NPCs, even the monsters make. But as far as like mass combat mechanics and such, we really haven't been too focused on that. We want to be able to tell a more personal story and encourage people to, at least initially, really delve into what makes them unique, what makes them a powerful person, not necessarily, a super powerful, magically amped up character, but what makes them a magnetic personality within the storyline.
Yeah, I'll dovetail onto that too, that the personal story, when you go back to the Chronicles, for the tier 1s and tier 2 fans, right, and the 3s, if you go back to the original Chronicles, it was a personal story. They were large scale events and combat that occurred within the theater of war in Kryn, but 90% of it, 90 to 95% of it was like, here's what's going on. And then whenever the big stuff happened, it was really like a narrative aftermath of here's what happened. Here's what happened after things went really, really wrong. Right. So one of the other things too, that I'll kind of throw out there is that from a dedicated mechanic perspective, I'm not sure that there would be a dedicated mechanic that we would incorporate or bolt on to what we're writing. As a like it's kind of that being there may be large scale combat that occurs, but I don't think that at this point at least that it would dovetail with something that's something new at least.
Yeah, the hardcover incorporates the new board game, and it
Yes.
does that very effectively. But that becomes an impersonal part of the story. It's a series of actions that you can undertake to develop a narrative, but it's not about your character. It's more about the ongoing skirmishes, the ongoing devastation, and that's not emotionally resounding.
Mhm.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, so
Spencer, what else we got?
all right, so next one we have is from the Eye of Ching. I'm going to sort of reword this a little bit. So it sounds like you guys are putting a lot of heart into this new Dragonlance series, and it seems that we can, from what you said, we can expect heroism and character growth, moral dilemma, nuance, those sorts of things that are sort of key to Dragonlance. The question that she has is, how is this going to be different from the other storylines that'll be going on at the same time coming from Baldman, the Forgotten Realms and DRW storylines?
It's a good question. Yeah. So while I do not have my ear to the ground as closely as some others may have about the DRW direction or the Moonshay directions that we've got right now, what I can at least tell you, again, from a philosophical perspective, the kind of the way that we're looking at it is, again, look at Star Wars as a pretty good blueprint of there is so much going on around that you get swept up into, in this theater of war, there are political powers, there are supernatural powers, there are divine powers that are contesting, vying for control, and there is one power in particular, the Dark Queen, that is kind of the root of all of the perniciousness and the evil when it comes to it. But there are other powers beyond that are included in it. So I think that part of this I can't tell you exactly what's going to separate it from those storylines at the very least, but from like a philosophical perspective, it is this river, this torrent of water that the players will step into and get swept up alongside, and there will be things that will their decisions they mean something. The choices that they make, we go back to like the mortals having a choice and having this agency in the conflict and how important that is on a grand, their choices will end up mattering to some effect in a grand scale locally at the very least.
And to build on that, some things are just going to happen. The War of the Lance is happening.
Yes.
The actions that the characters undertake throughout the storyline aren't going to completely unravel the war and prevent it from starting or stop it mid-grade. We are telling a part of the War of the Lance story. These aren't like the superhumans, the super people that we might find in a Forgotten Realms campaign. Where they are godly empowered and they're just festooned with artifacts. Like that's not the story we're setting out to tell. They are burdened with relationships and consequences. The people that we will be working with, the characters that we'll be working with, are intrinsic parts of the story, but the world is a very large place that does not revolve around them. It's like you were saying, it's kind of like looking at Star Wars as the parallel. Look at this Dragonlance storyline. It's kind of like the Andor of the Star Wars experience, right?
Yes.
So,
okay.
I guess then to ask another question from the chat, should we expect? You've already said that they're not really going to be intermeshed stories with the hardcover, not surprisingly. Are they sort of overlapping in some of the locations and characters? As what we might expect to see in the hardcover, without going into any details.
You're thinking real hard, John.
I'm thinking very hard how I want to word this exactly. There will be at least, I'll say that it does not. Damn. I'm trying not to Tom Holland this thing.
No one wants to get a call from Watsy tomorrow.
Nobody. I don't want one from Dave, and I don't want from Watsy at all. No, I think that the best way to look at it is that if there is, who knows? I'm not gonna end up stepping into it. This is me just like trying to stand outside of the line of fire as best as I possibly can.
As Zombie Joe just said, he thinks he just heard the click of an NDA sniper rifle.
All right. Well, I've got so it sounds like maybe there's some verging on, but you are telling your own stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
they're,
it is.
they're
Yes.
transparent in that regard. Where you might see crossover, you're not beholden to the events of one storyline or the other.
Right. Yes.
Understood.
That I can safely say.
All right,
Yeah.
I have a question for John specifically. This one I think you can answer.
Mhm.
How many lances does each dragon get?
Oh man. Okay, so here's what I'm working on. I got my best gnomish minds on this right now. Okay, we're gonna do a Dragonlance Gatling gun type thing. It's like 6 Dragonlances that are like bolted to one another, and it's gonna make this Septual Lance type thing. The Sexta-Lance. I don't know. We'll call it something else. It's fine. We're still in the design
patent
phases.
Patent pending.
Patent pending. Exactly. Yeah. How many?
right.
Oh, as many as the imagination can create.
Fantastic. All right, we've got one more question left. This one's actually just mostly for me and Ted, I guess. Before we really got to sort of wrap this up because we are coming up on a full hour now. So again, Darger or Dar Junior on Twitch asked, will the Vault of the Undying be available to other conventions and stores to run, especially the Epic? I don't know if you guys actually know all the details how this works out, but Ted and I do.
Have at it.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah,
You go ahead.
Okay, so these are going to be exclusive to Baldman Games for a 2-month virtual D&D weekends for a 2-month period. So from the time they're released, they will have 2 virtual D&D weekends where the only place you can play them. After that, they'll go up on DM's Guild. Anyone can buy them. Anyone can run them.
Yep.
We want to have that period. We're creating these at Baldman. We want to have those for our use for a little bit. Also gives us a good chance to sort of play test them on a wider scale. Make any changes need to be changed, but then everyone should get to play them. We don't want to keep these just to ourselves.
This is in comparison to the Moonchase storyline that we talked about recently, where we announced that will show up first at in-person shows for a period of time. So you're not going to see Moonchase stories premiering at the same time, both in person and online.
Yes, you will see Moonchase stories eventually at virtual weekends after they're on DM's Guild.
The only exception to our online first policy for Dragonlance is obviously going to be PAX U, where that is, I mean, that's meant to be the sort of big premiere, not just for our storyline, but of course for the hardcover as well. And people have asked some questions, danced around discussions of what the AL status of the Dragonlance storyline is, and to ease the burden on John and Alan, I'm just going to say that we will have more information coming for you at the start of the new year.
Namaste. Thank you.
What? Announcements at the first of the year? That sounds like marketing speak.
We will have a lot to say around then. There's a lot of big stuff coming down the pipeline for Baldman Games and the Herald's Guild in general. These new storylines are just one piece of a much larger picture that we're trying to paint here about how we are collectively stepping up and trying to take on a more prominent role in doing what we can for the industry, for the community, right? Of DMs, of creatives, of players, of fans. We want to make a space where we are putting out incredible things for people to fall in love with, spaces for people to come and feel comfortable and joyful sharing with each other. And I think that what we've heard from Alan and John tonight really speaks to this sense that we are looking for people who are going to showcase that in the best way possible.
Here.
Yep.
So with that said, we want to thank everybody for coming to watch. And John and Alan, why don't you guys do a quick shout out as to where people can find you elsewhere on the internet or at places you'll be upcoming in person. So John, if you want to start.
Sure. So I am a part of a podcast crew between Troy Sandlin, Zach Goins, and myself. We're part of Geeks Can't. So if you know what the Thieves Can't is, it is the secret language of thieves, but whatever the secret language of geeks, right? So we stream on Sundays and Tuesdays at 9:30 Central every single week. We talk a lot about crowdfunding. We try to support a lot of the independent creators that are out there, and we have kind of a think we got a pretty good network of friends across the industry outside of just D&D. We talked to folks over at Free League. We've talked to the folks at D&D Beyond before. So we're kind of like a little bit of everything when it comes to RPGs. Though D&D has always been and probably always will be our home. So you can find us on the typical social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch is where we stream every week. You can find us wherever popular podcasts are sold, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. You'll find us out there.
All right. And Alan, what about you?
So the most reliable way to get a hold of me is currently, dumpster fire notwithstanding, Twitter. That would be at Warftiner, WARFTEINER. I think it's on the screen right
It's
now.
right under your face.
Excellent. I love it. Outside of that, I attend most of the major shows. Winter Fantasy, Gen Con, Gamehole Con. Those are my big three, and I try and get to like Origins and stuff if I can. But I mean, out in the woods howling at the moon.
Sounds good.
There you go.
Will you guys both physically be at PAX U?
I will not. I can't. I have other obligations.
I will be there. I'll be there.
So
I'm very excited.
We're plus one dwarf. All right.
Plus one dwarf.
You heard it here first.
That's really all you need. Just one dwarf can change the world.
Yeah. Jenny brings up a good point in chat too. Like, if someone really wants to get a hold of me, they can get a hold of her, and she'll turn around and poke me.
I mean, that's how we get a hold of you.
Share a living room.
She is eminently findable. That is true.
And that's how we get a hold of you when we need to, right? Like we just poke Jenny in.
Accurate.
Yes.
All right, and as always, I'm Ted Atkinson, and this is Spencer Navarro. We are two of the bald-ish men, and we are found pretty much all over the internet at the usernames that you see here, as well as, of course, at the Baldman Games community Discord server, which is the best place to find out about additional Baldman Games news coming up. So we will talk to you more there soon. We hope that we will see some of you who are watching during the upcoming virtual D&D weekend, which is just a week away right now. So we will be doing a lot of work for that this week. And otherwise, thank you so much. Make sure to take care of each other, and we will talk to you again soon. Thank you all.
Bye,
everybody. For Sturm.